Bono the cow, Marshallese. And forgive me in advance. This is gonna be a tough one. Right out the gate, though, I feel important to say, I do not want your pity. In an attempt to bring back the original beauty I had seen in Dykesplained, I'm going to start in what I suspect will be seen in a strange way. Today I'll be Dykesplaining myself, and why I'm such a strange individual. But in the process, I will also be describing portions of the larger hidden pedophile network that has exerted its influence over the country in the past. We're going to be discussing a spiritual successor to Boys Town, Bethel Church, and Bethel Academy. Did that last sentence sound a little too tinfoil hatty for you? Well, do please check the sources that will be showing up on the screen, as well as listed in the description box below. Lawrence E. King Jr. was imprisoned for 15 years for his position in the trafficking and prostitution of young children. Despite the documentary about his absolutely heinous crimes being silenced by the Discovery Channel under pressure from Congress. And after his arrest in 1994, those who sought to imitate the Boys Town model of child grooming, trafficking, and prostitution branched out with no leader to keep them in check and keep their actions quiet. One of these protégés of Lawrence King Jr. was the aspiring child abuser divinely appointed by God to fuck the sin out of children, Herman Fountain. But his story starts before the arrests of King Jr. It starts with the closing of one of these Boys Town imitator schools. I wasn't there at the time, so let's let a broadcast news journalist, Tom Zhao, show you himself.
It begins with troubled kids, some too young to see an R-rated movie, were said to be into sex and drugs. Many others were general misfits, thought to be out of control.
But now it's said that the school is out of control, that its philosophy of corporal punishment has degenerated into bizarre, twisted forms of discipline. To top it all, it's run by a Christian minister. The story has been unfolding for months, but tonight Tom Zhao shows us what's been happening in Loosedale, Mississippi.
A beautiful church on a quiet country road. But behind the peaceful facade, a controversy rages over whether the church leaders here have gone to extremes with the old saying, spare the rod and spoil the child. The children here range in age from 9 to 18, boys and girls who have one thing in common, problems at home.
I don't know why some of you came from New York. I don't know why some of you came from Chicago, all the way down to Loosedale, Mississippi. The only thing that I can figure out is that the Word of God, it's God that brought you here, and that it's God's going to have to transform your life into being something for Him.
The Reverend Herman Fountain, Brother Fountain as he's known here, says he has a mission to save these children. They came from all over the country, sent by parents who despaired of handling their problems alone. Some of the kids were on drugs, others in trouble at school, or simply rebellious.
Spiritually, you're down the tubes. That's why your moms and your dads have sent you to this very place right here.
He's determined it's because he and Bethel are battling for survival, battling a storm of serious charges that range from illegal imprisonment of children to brainwashing and actual physical abuse.
You bend over, touch toes, and each swing the switch back and it hits you however hard you want to. Very painful.
Blue marks.
And left welts.
I hate him. Flat out, I hate him.
It was an almost constant stream of runaways reaching Loosedale that first called the attention of the authorities to Bethel.
Many of the children have had marks on them, the result of whippings or what they call licks with a switch.
Sharon Barton is an officer of the County Youth Court. She's been dealing with runaways from Bethel for 10 years.
We've seen photographs taken that show severe bruises and marks on the buttocks and on the legs.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes. Yes, I have.
And these were from youngsters who had run away and who would come to you for help?
Yes.
The runaways' complaints prompted a youth court hearing in June. Reverend Fountain refused to answer questions about the children's treatment, citing separation of church and state. The judge said he had no choice. He ordered all of the children taken out of Bethel.
Can you believe this? Can you believe
Those girls on this bus right here. State Welfare Commissioner Thomas Britton took custody of the children.
With Bethel, we did not set out to close it. We set out to make sure that those children who were being mistreated were in fact put under protective care.
We want to live here and we want to be with the Word of God, which is the right way, because all these people are going to hell.
Tempers flare.
Stand before God, ladies. That's right. You're going to stand before a living God. A living God.
Reverend Fountain and 10 of his supporters were arrested for resisting the police. It was the second time in 8 years the youth court had intervened at Bethel. The state has no regulatory authority here. Church, schools, and homes require no license or registration in Mississippi. And Herman Fountain wants to keep it that way.
What would be so terrible about being under state regulation? Doesn't someone outside of you and your immediate staff here have a right to know the names of the kids who are here, the numbers of kids who are here, why they're sent here? Don't they deserve to know more about what's going on here since you were dealing with the adolescents?
They want their foot in the door. That's what they want. Look, it'll be the children's homes, Sunday schools, and then it'll be the daycares. Then it'll be eventually it'll be the church. Eventually it'll be the church.
What is your mandate as far as bringing kids that basically seem to be out of control at home into control at Bethel?
Well, we have a very regimental daily routine. They fall in line just like they would in the Marine Corps. Learn laps, corporal punishment as far as legs, and we have a lot of ways of discipline.
As soon as I got through, they shaved my hair off. I was put on watch.
That was Ray Friary's introduction to Bethel. He's now 18 and out on his own, but he spent over a year there.
You never saw a newspaper. You never saw a magazine. You know, we was sitting around talking, and we was thinking we wouldn't know if World War III started, you know.
How much did they cut your communications with the outside, with your family?
Everything was censored. Everything was, your letters were always open. You couldn't never, try and write my parents and tell them about what was going on, and it never got to them. It never got to them.
You were put on a construction detail. Now, what was that work like?
When you first get there, you were put on what they call a nigger crew, which is like trash work. You just pick up trash or you'll chip bricks. If you got to be in the good crew, you did a lot of construction work. We built a lot of houses and did a lot of roof jobs. We didn't receive anything for it, and it consists of long days.
Did you ever have an asthmatic who was required to go and run laps?
Asthmatic.
Couldn't do it.
Not that I can remember, that... No, sir.
You don't remember asthmatics being required to?
If it was, she was very slim on her asthmatic.
What's your philosophy when it comes to using kids to work? I mean, do serious adult type work?
Basically, it's a form of our program here, basically. Now, but if it's outside of here, we always ask the kids if they'll volunteer to go.
And so when a court says you're using youth for work gangs...
No, I don't see it that way. They might see it that way, but I don't.
What kind do they want?
Well, he likes the long, skinny ones. But Mike Baldino, he likes the short, fat ones. And Brother Fountain, he'll like anything.
Brings my blood to a curdling boil to hear these children, because I was one of these children. And this was only the beginning. Bethel Church and School was closed down in 1988, as news reports indicated, but it ran illegally for a number of years before opening again shortly after the raid on Boys Town. Now, under the name Bethel Academy, the same property had been expanded with the purchase of the nudist colony next door, as well as 40 additional acres to the south for its public reopening, as well as greatly expanded in its regiment and program for what was described to my mother as a program for at-risk teens, which has never had a successful runaway. See, I happened to be a bit of a shoplifter and a Houdini as a child, and the police in my little town of Moore Park, California, were quite well acquainted with my family, and especially me. My mother was quite concerned at the time that if I were to be sent there, I would likely escape as I had from other religious reform programs. I was, at the time, in juvenile hall, and I felt the walls closing in on me. I was a tiny, precocious little girl with way too much knowledge for anyone's own good. So when my mother came to me with a drink from Starbucks and promises of things getting better, I was gullible enough to fall for it. Waiting for me at my home, the last time it would ever be that, was a former police officer being paid as a bounty hunter, there to cuff and shackle me in transport from California to Lucedale, Mississippi. But this piece isn't entirely about me. I'd prefer to let the other people, those not as strong as myself, give you a direct understanding of what daily life was like in this place. Each of these sections is taken from a lawsuit levied in 2004 against Bethel Academy in defense of 5 families. Starting at line 8. This complaint is brought by the named plaintiffs, which include both parents of former cadets and the former cadets themselves, to obtain redress for systematic frauds, deceit, violence, and other corrupt and unlawful practices perpetuated upon parents and their minor cadets for the financial benefit of the defendants. Skipping ahead to line 45, Plaintiff Cheryl Struble is the mother of Plaintiff Morgan Struble. Cheryl Struble enrolled her son Morgan, a minor, in Bethel Boys Academy in or around Lucedale, Mississippi, on or about May 11th, 2003. Morgan Struble was a student/cadet there until on or about May 14th, 2003. Cheryl Struble paid the sum of $20,000 via cashier's check to Bethel Boys Academy upon enrollment of her son, Morgan Struble, for his education for the term of 1 year. Plaintiff Struble later filed a stop payment on the cashier's check through her bank, and thus did not lose the $20,000. Cheryl Struble paid an additional $4,000 in cash to Bethel Academy to cover her son's necessary orthodontist appointments while he was enrolled at Bethel. Struble's son was never taken to the orthodontist while attending Bethel Boys Academy. Cheryl Struble was told by defendant Herman Fountain at the time she withdrew her son from Bethel Academy that he would not reimburse any monies paid to the school, despite the fact that Struble's son had only been at Bethel for a very short time and was severely abused. Continuing on to Part 1, Count 2, defendants and all of them confined Morgan Struble while he was a minor without legal justification by the use of fraud and deceit on plaintiff and his parents from on or about May 11th until on or about May 14th, 2003. Morgan Struble was taken to the barracks where 4 grown drill instructors were waiting to beat him. When he would fall, they would kick him. The beating would continue for half an hour. Once at his bunk, Struble found his suitcase empty. All of his things had been stolen while he was being beaten. He did not report the theft because he was too afraid. He was told repeatedly that his parents knew he was being beaten and deprived of food and water. Defendants commit numerous physical assaults upon the plaintiff by kicking him, cutting him, depriving him of food and water. Plaintiff Morgan Struble was falsely told by his parents that his parents did not want him. He was falsely told that his parents knew and had agreed to the treatment he was receiving at the hands of the defendants. This was a child that had only been there for 4 days. 4 days before the riots that brought the police onto the property and parents into the light of what their children were experiencing. Or should I say, a portion of what their children were experiencing. Much like Boys Town in Missouri, Bethel was run by very well-connected individuals. And until the internet became their worst enemy, it was very easy to negotiate with those who did survive Bethel Academy, because they experienced the least of what it had to offer in regards to reforming children. Struble wasn't much of a troubled child. He had only really gotten in some trouble with bad kids and friends and started smoking weed, but found himself to be the next Fresh Prince of Lucedale. Our next part, though, is dealing with someone who was there for much longer, an 11-year-old black boy named Willie Dukes. Kelly Dukes enrolled her son Willie Dukes in the Bethel Academy in or around Lucedale, Mississippi, from on or about October 1st, 2002 until on or about May 22nd, 2003. Plaintiff Kelly Dukes obtained a loan through the Sally Mae Foundation to pay the tuition demanded. Willie Dukes was locked inside a footlocker for 2 to 13 hours at a time. He was not allowed out, even to go to the bathroom. He was not allowed to eat or drink while locked in the footlocker. On several occasions, other cadets were instructed to sit on top of the footlocker while Dukes was locked inside. Dukes was punched in his eye on several occasions, causing black eyes. He was called names, choked, slapped, hit, kicked, and spit on by other cadets, as well as staff while at Bethel. The abuse of the other cadets was occasioned by the directive of the defendants herein. Dukes was made to scrub floors with his own toothbrush. He then had to use the same toothbrush to brush his teeth. He was made to carry and or drag a heavy log, referred to as Big Bertha, through the mud and rain as a form of punishment. On 2 separate occasions, Dukes lost his shoes in the mud during this punishment and was not allowed to stop and find them. Dukes was made to carry on through the mud and rain with nothing on his feet except socks. He was denied bathroom privileges, causing him to urinate on himself. He was thrown around like a punching bag, not allowed to wear his own clothes, or even clean clothes, denied the right to attend class, to continue his education, was rarely allowed to speak to his parents on the phone, and when he was, the call was monitored by staff or other cadets. And if he tried to tell his parents what was happening, he was placed back on work detail or punishment. And he was repeatedly poked in the eye as a way of conditioning him to use the term cadet instead of I when referring to himself. Please take a moment to consider the abuses this very young child was forced to endure. But give special consideration to the last line in the transcript, repeatedly poked in the eye as a way of conditioning him to use the term this cadet instead of I. This begins to crack the surface of how truly sinister and destructive these people can be to children. They are willing to absolutely destroy both the ego and id to create a perfectly malleable creature, dependent on the group. And that is the kind of brainwashing this is, the creation of perfect malleability. But what does that have to do with you, Sev? You might be asking right about now. The only reason I know so much about this place is because I was one of their special cadets, a term that has rung in my ears my entire life. In addition to being a little Houdini, I was especially gifted young in life for mathematics and the use of computers, and it was through this small gift that all their fine manipulations took place. I spent my time rather equally between the girls' academy and the boys' academy, being that I was rather special to both Herman Fountain and his son, Herman Bubba Fountain Jr. I was their perfect sexual slave. People often come to me, always so politely and respectfully, and ask if I am trans, or if I was born with 2 X chromosomes. And I was born with 2 X chromosomes, but I was also born with a genetic disorder that is, in part, behind my recurring cancers, that is known as chimerism. Simply put, a sibling and I were sharing a womb, fraternally. But because I was taking up all the necessary nutrients, that other zygote merged into mine, filling me with regions and organs that are either deformed or just not mine from the DNA perspective. It caused severe testosterone balance in my teenage years, which culminated in shooting up as tall as I did around age 21. I also have an enlarged clitoris, and it was the mix of slightly manly qualities that I have and that enlarged clitoris that attracted them to me. I was always sent back and forth in the same way. I would be taken from the platoon and drill or work crew to which I was assigned and told about an electrical or electronic job that needs to be done. And on the next trip the van took between the 2 schools, they were about an hour apart, with the girls' academy just outside Hattiesburg, Mississippi, in a little town called Petal. But before too long, someone would find me terribly attractive in that intentionally unattractive pantsuit I was permitted to wear, and the work would change from learning electrical and electronic engineering to being a well-groomed prostitute. I can fucking do this. Don't worry about me. I wasn't the only one either. We called ourselves lifers. Often the Fountain family would hold a wedding between someone in the girls' school and someone in the boys', in a manner that would seem like it was being presented as a benefit for good behavior amongst those in the lifer group. Fortunately, they could never marry me off. Unfortunately, most of the time those who got married disappeared and were never seen from or heard from again. It was generally understood in whispers between the lifers that the term lifer was somewhat ironic, because they killed us when they were done with us. Being a special cadet wasn't all sunshine and hardcore anal with big black cocks, though. It came with the drawback that other cadets, those suffering the physical and psychological abuse necessary to control and weed out those amongst us they considered special, to absolutely hate you. There was a boy named Davidson, I remember. I was running cable to fix a security camera in the barracks when he came in and cornered me between two bunks. With a rapid flurry, he began punching me in my ribs with all his fucking might. And because my cameras had got him in trouble, he got caught masturbating. And after he had gotten good and worked up, breaking my ribs, he tore off my pants and he drove the message home. I am fuckable scum. But I'm not fuckable scum, and I know I'm not fuckable scum. I have a strength that is nigh insurmountable for most humans. Most of the people who went through this shit went insane, whether or not they were a special cadet. The abuses are utterly insane. But I don't want your pity. I've beaten cancer twice. I've survived this place I'm describing, as well as Afghanistan. And I've never lost that tight hold on the innocent curiosity that fuels my every action. What I want is for people to know that it's far bigger than anyone talks about. I want to inform you of my personal interactions with the pedophiles who influence our country. These may be, in part, anecdotes, but there's a greater story that needs to be known, and it is unfair for me to hold it away so tight when so many of you in the audience have shown me kindness and respect when you're able in such great amounts. If you haven't, go check out the 1994 documentary Conspiracy of Silence, and check out the sources used for the beginning of this piece. And merci beaucoup, thank you for listening. None of this is easy to discuss, but the important things never are. Bonsoir, mon amours. I hope this explains why I'm so odd, and why I'll never give up the good fight.